Dear colleague, this recording is intended essentially to encourage the listener to determine the exact moment at which sounds and murmurs occur by the simultaneous examination of the phonocardiographic tracings reproduced in the enclosed folder. The secret of a rewarding auscultation depends on careful visual and auditory identification of the first and second sounds and localization of the sound abnormality being studied in relation to these reference points. The first example, corresponding to tracing number 1, is a loud, tambour-like second aortic sound observed in a hypertensive patient. Tracing number 2 shows a physiological narrow splitting of the second sound varying with respiration. It should be noted that the pulmonary valve closes later than the aortic valve on inspiration. Tracing number 3, more widely split second sound, the pulmonary component always being last. In addition, there is a systolic murmur. If you did not recognize the splitting of the second sound in the previous example, listen to it again. Tracing number 4, auscultation of a patient with an artificial mitral valve. As it moves, the little plastic ball produces clicks corresponding to the first sound and to the opening snap. These artificial clicks can be recognized by their characteristic tone. Tracing number 5, another example of an artificial mitral valve. In this case, however, during diastole, following the second sound, several clicks are heard corresponding to the ball striking its housing. Tracing number 6, split first and second sounds in a patient with a right bundle branch block. The tricuspid and pulmonary valves close last. There is also a mid-systolic ejection murmur which ends long before the second sound. Tracing number 7, presence of several clicks at the beginning of systole due to the sudden flow of blood into the distended aorta or pulmonary artery. Tracing number 8. Gallop rhythm resulting from tachycardia with the addition of a third heart sound due to ventricular filling. Tracing number 9. Mid-systolic ejection murmur. Note the silence between the end of the murmur and the second sound. Tracing number 10. Another mid-systolic ejection murmur originating in the aortic valve. Note the characteristic diamond shape of this murmur. Tracing number 11. High-pitched, musical ejection murmur associated with splitting of the second sound. The listener should now hear fairly easily what he sees on the tracing. Tracing number 12. Marked aortic stenosis. Harsh mid-systolic ejection murmur. Reduced intensity of the aortic second sound. Note also the post-extrasystolic accentuation of the murmur. Tracing number 13. Particular type of systolic murmur heard only at the end of systole. The late systolic localization of the murmur can be detected. Tracing number 14. At the same late systolic location, there is a sound or click that is shorter and sharper than the preceding murmur. These late systolic sound phenomena represent minor mitral valve abnormalities. Tracing number 15. Interatrial septal defect. Pulmonary ejection mid-systolic murmur. Fixed, wide splitting of the second sound. The combination of these two abnormalities is characteristic of interatrial septal defect. Tracing number 16. Interatrial septal defect. Pulmonary ejection murmur. Split second sound. Tracing number 17. Ejection murmur in a patient with a low pulmonary valve pressure gradient. The second sound is not split, as is the case in interatrial septal defect. Tracing number 18. Interventricular septal defect. In this condition, the murmur is pansystolic and there is no silent interval between the sounds and the murmur. Tracing number 19. Interventricular septal defect. Pansystolic murmur, widely split second sound. Tracing number 20. Aortic insufficiency. Presence of a soft, blowing, early diastolic murmur, which begins with the second aortic sound. There is also a systolic ejection murmur present. Tracing number 21. Aortic insufficiency. Early, blowing, diastolic murmur. In addition, tambour-like second sound marking the beginning of the murmur. Tracing number 22, mitral stenosis. 2 phonocardiograms of the same patient. Loud first heart sound, an opening snap clearly identified in diastole, following the second sound, indicated by the abbreviation OS. And low-pitched diastolic rumble with presystolic accentuation seen in the second tracing. These auscultatory signs of mitral stenosis that you have just heard, namely the loud first heart sound, the opening snap of the mitral valve, and the diastolic rumble, should be clearly identified. Tracing number 23, mitral stenosis, loud first heart sound, opening snap, diastolic rumble, particularly becoming more audible at the end of diastole. Tracing number 24. Mitral disease. Auricular fibrillation. Loud first sound. Regurgitant pansystolic mitral murmur. Opening snap. Tracing number 25. Pericardial friction rub. This friction rub, which has a particular scratching quality, is heard during both systole and diastole. The last two tracings were recorded on the same patient with mitral stenosis complicated by atrial fibrillation and pulmonary hypertension. The auscultatory signs found in this patient include several of the abnormalities that have just been heard. Tracing number 26 illustrates a loud first sound, an opening snap, and a diastolic rumble of variable intensity. Tracing number 27, mid-systolic pulmonary ejection murmur, systolic ejection click, split second sound, diastolic murmur of pulmonary insufficiency.